Trends, repeating patterns, sometimes good, sometimes bad. I'm not too keen on the negative stuff. We get enough of that. Let's do something positive. Hi folks, it's Falcon. Today on gameranx, 10 recent trends in video games we want more of. Let's start out with number 10, one that sounds negative on its face, but is actually really positive. And that is delays that lead to less buggy games. So one thing we're constantly complaining about is the deluge of games that come every year in a horribly broken state on day one. It's a serious problem that doesn't just make games unplayable on day one, sometimes week one, sometimes month one. But if it doesn't make them unplayable, it at very least makes it a worse experience. The practice of releasing broken games has eroded a lot of confidence in the gaming industry as a whole. One bad experience with a truly busted game is enough to make more casual fans step back from the hobby entirely. I mean, how often do you hear people bring up how bad modern games are by talking about how buggy they are? It is an industry-wide problem that really needs to be addressed. Thankfully, it appears that some developers are actually kind of trying to. Instead of releasing their games in a broken state, they're delaying them, sometimes multiple times. And while that is a different kind of annoying, like I said, at the end of the day, it's not great when you get endless delays. It means the games we get actually feel complete, like they finished making them before releasing them. Assassin's Creed Shadows is a recent example. It's a special case because Ubisoft had something serious to prove here. Their last few games have gotten mediocre to bad reviews, lower than expected sales, and they really needed this one to be a success. It seems like it worked, because it's the second best-selling game of 2025 so far, just under Monster Hunter Wilds, which is that's big success. Its general stability and lack of usual day one issues is a big breath of fresh air, and that fact had to at least partially contribute to the game's general success. Now, there definitely are things to complain about with it. I'm not going to say there aren't, and if you want to talk to Jake about it, he will tell you everything that is wrong with Assassin's Creed, not only Shadows, but as a whole. I liked Shadows. I don't think it's perfect, but I thought it was a big step up, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. But it's not just Ubisoft. Some other studios that are infamous for buggy games seem like they're trying to clean up their act recently. Say what you will about Starfield, but it is easily Bethesda's least buggy game. I know that's actually kind of just very bad on reflection for Bethesda as a whole, but Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, that's a good example. It's significantly more stable than the first game. Not totally bug-free, but in comparison, it's like night and day. It's a huge improvement overall. There are still a lot of buggy, sloppy, and generally crappy games that come out, probably more so than games that come out complete and good, but it's starting to look like the tide's starting to turn, if only by a little. With how many games come out incomplete and poorly tested in the past decade, anytime something comes out that's actually fairly stable on day one, it's a big deal. And number 9, one-man developed games topping the Steam charts. Sometimes it can feel like the big names completely dominate the entire industry. Your Nintendos, your PlayStations, your Microsofts, your EAs, they control all the marketing and distribution of gaming. It can feel like the little guy doesn't really have a chance. But then you see something like Schedule 1 come along and just completely explode in popularity. It's an indie game made mostly by a guy. It can't be understated just how much of a huge success Schedule 1 has been for the game's creator, Tyler 1. Based on the amount of people playing the game, it's estimated that the game made between $25 million and up to $110 million in its first month alone. Could possibly even be higher, and these are estimated guesses based on player counts and a few other analytics. For one dude, that's a massive windfall, and it's well-deserved because Schedule 1 is far better than the drug dealer simulator concept that it would lead you to believe it could be. It just goes to show you that the little guy has a chance to make it in the industry, and he's not the only one. Games like Stardew Valley, Manor Lords, and Balatro were also huge breakthroughs that are mostly made by a solo developer. With hundreds and thousands of indie games that come out seemingly every day on Steam, it can seem like getting noticed is nearly impossible, but these guys prove there is room for success even if you're just some hobbyist frittering away on some project in your basement. You just need an eye-catching idea and solid design skills to make it happen. Making a game solo is not easy. Making something horrible even is going to take hundreds of hours of work, and I know from first-hand experience, I've made plenty of horrible things. So I have nothing for respect but the people who are able to cobble together something at all, let alone the ones that somehow manage to make something great that gets a lot of attention. An important thing to keep in mind is that it wasn't always the case in the games industry. Sure, early on in the 80s, it was possible to get rich as a one-man dev, but for a while during the late 90s and 2000s, the indie scene was all but dead, which is extremely hard to make money as a small developer back then, but now platforms like itch.io and Steam, there's just tons of tools for success. Just putting it all together and winning the attention roulette, that's the hard part. At number 8, Nintendo seemingly embracing third parties. This is more speculation than a 100% surefire trend, but with the Switch 2 coming soon, it's pretty worth considering. One thing the original Switch was severely lacking by the end of its life cycle was third-party games, mostly because the heavy hitters just couldn't run that well on the system. They were able to perform miracles for a while with stuff like getting Doom Eternal to actually work on the system pretty well, honestly, but getting the most graphically impressive and popular games on the system in those last few years just wasn't going to be possible. So with Switch 2 coming, Nintendo is once again going all in on third-party games, bringing stuff like Cyberpunk 2077, Elden Ring, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, Hitman, whole lot more. It's all coming. It's not just old games getting re-released either. There's a whole lot of new third-party games coming too, like Project 007, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4, and interestingly, Borderlands 4. Now, that's a Take-Two game, which lends us to wonder why, if perhaps any other upcoming Take-Two games might show up, like, GTA 6. I'm sure everybody at Rockstar and Take-Two want their upcoming blockbuster on as many systems as possible, so I'm sure they're at least thinking about it. At this point, we don't really know. They haven't announced it for PC even yet. The game is still this massive question mark, and even though it's only presumably a few short months away. Whether it's on Switch or not, though, I would be surprised if we didn't get another version of GTA 5 on that system at least, and it's good to see Nintendo trying to court more third-party support for their handheld, even if the prices are going to be pretty brutal. And number 7 is no more login requirements. Listen, I just want to play the damn game. I don't want to sign in every time I'm clocking into work at a factory. I've done enough of that. Happily, I don't do that anymore, but I'm sure everybody watching this is probably agreeing with me. You just want to play the damn game. The industry seems to go through cycles where every publisher wants to jam some pointless launcher you have to go through to get into their games. And then after they realize nobody wants it or cares, they give up and remove it. It comes in waves. You've seen it. You know what I'm talking about. Remember the Bethesda launcher? Yeah, they tried that for a little while, but they eventually gave in. Oddly enough, I think Wolfenstein on Switch was the last straw for that, if I remember right. Maybe it was even Doom on Switch. I don't know. Last year, the big trend was Sony jamming their annoying login requirement in every game they put out on PC. They even patched a few of the old ones to force PSN login in ones that didn't even originally have PSN anything. Everyone hated it, and thankfully they backed down. Now most of the recent games have a completely optional login. That's if you want stats and stuff, in your PSN account. Spider-Man 2 axed the requirement right before release. Last of Us Part 2, also thankfully free of login shenanigans when it came out on PC. It seems like Sony's mostly learned its lesson and backed out the login crap. It's a lesson the industry just seems to need to learn over and over and over again. But slowly, it does seem like the pointless logins are going away, and that's a positive trend. At number 6, PC gaming is back in a big way. If you're active on the gaming community, you know already. Even ride-or-die console-only types have been switching over to PC. You've seen the discussions on Reddit and enthusiast forums. People building PCs, just getting into... Everybody's going PC lately. It's not just a vibe thing either. There's numbers to back it up. According to Newzoo, a market intelligence firm, console and PC gaming declined by 2% in 2024, which sounds bad, but PC game spending was actually up 1.4%. In an industry where almost everything was down, PC gaming was one of the few bright spots in terms of sales. In terms of spending habits, kind of depressing. Most of it goes to free-to-play subscriptions, and microtransactions made up 50% of all PC game sales, which sounds completely nuts. But at least according to these guys, that's what's happening. So PC gaming is on the rise, and there are a lot of good reasons for it, too. We're deep in the current console generation, so these machines aren't selling as much. PC gaming is getting easier than ever to get into. Sure, there's a lot of annoying stuff about being a PC gamer. Windows is a constant irritation with its consumer-unfriendly updates that turn on crap you don't want against your will. Graphics cards are horribly overpriced. Compatibility issues are a constant problem. Getting games to work properly can be a huge chore. In general, PC requires you to perform maintenance that you would never have to owning just a console. That's kind of the benefit of the console, in fact. But the benefits do outweigh the potential annoyances, and I think that's why a lot of people are making the switch. With more and more formerly console-exclusive games coming out on PC, there's fewer reasons than ever to own a console, and basically the only system that's still got 100% guaranteed exclusives is the Switch. Xbox puts out pretty much all their games on PC, and PlayStation is even kind of starting to do that. Standards for PC ports are getting a lot better, too, so the PC is no longer longer de facto the worst version of a game. It's often the best, actually. There's fewer reasons anymore to exclusively game on consoles and more reasons to use PCs, and that's what it boils down to. At number 5 is decompiling games, an amazing trend and a godsend if you're into old games. Instead of being forced to play classic games like The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time on an old busted Nintendo 64 using an overpriced game cartridge, you can now enjoy the game on a modern PC with native resolution and tons of tweaks and improvements. It used to be, if you wanted to play some ancient console game on PC, you had to emulate it, which was often a struggle on its own. Even now, Nintendo 64 emulation is pretty spotty. Smarter people than me, however, found a much better way. Instead of just grabbing a ROM file off a cartridge and calling it a day, these people took the time and effort to completely reverse engineer the game to access the raw code, which can then be used to create a native port for the PC. With ROMs on emulators, you're mostly just guessing how a game's inner workings function, but when it's decompiled, what you can do with a game is completely limitless. It's not just an easy task or anything like that. Even once a game is decompiled, someone still needs to actually take all that code and turn it into a working PC game. But in the last few years, we've been getting more and more of these projects, and they're always exciting to see. The most impressive and out-of-nowhere decompile project right now has got to be Sonic Unleashed, a console-exclusive game that some enterprising fans managed to decompile and create a PC port. Opens doors for an entirely new form of Xbox 360 game preservation. With real emulation still a long way off, one way fans can share the experience of playing their favorite games from that era is to decompile the game. It's the first major Xbox 360 decompilation we are aware of, and I cannot wait to see more. In fact, if I were the people who owned this IP, I would be hiring these people and getting these games out in a manner that you could, buy. But unfortunately, game companies seem mostly uninterested in preserving their games, so it's good to see people taking preservation in their own hands by making games like this available for everyone to play. At number 4, games made for a moderate budget that are successful. In an industry increasingly with out-of-control budgets for games, one positive trend I've started to notice is a growing market for games more or less made on a moderate budget, and they still find success. The obvious example here is Space Marine 2. They claim was made for less than half of the cost of Doom Eternal, but managed to sell 4.5 million copies in about a month. Recently, a lot more of the little guys, in this case making mid-budget kinds of games, are beating the heavy hitters at their own game. Kingdom Come 2, Helldivers 2, even something like Elden Ring, which is something that people speculate as having cost around 200 million, but it sold 13 million copies in its first 3 weeks. 200 million sounds like a lot, but compared to some of the big recent games like Call of Duty Cold War, which allegedly cost 700 million, 200 million is actually kind of chump change. Budgets on these big premium games are just getting out of control. It's not sustainable, so it's good to see some games come out that don't have to be the biggest thing ever to be considered a sales success. And number 3 is making new games using old tools. There's a ton of indies that come out trying to replicate the style of old retro games. Some of them do it well, some don't. But one glowing trend I'm all for is getting new games using old technology. There's just something endearing about seeing a new game run on Sega Genesis hardware, or Sega Saturn for that matter. Seeing some old game engine being used in an entirely new way. There's a lot of projects like this coming out recently. Stuff like Celico, a game made using the Doom engine, where they were somehow able to make something that's closer to a boomer shooter version of Fear, a blisteringly fast shooting gameplay thing that just, it seems like it shouldn't have been possible to do back in 1993. I mean, it technically isn't. It's a version of the Doom engine, but it's also a version of the Doom engine. One of the crazy examples of this sort of thing, probably the craziest, is this prequel to the King's Field-inspired Lunacid, which was made entirely using the Sword of Moonlight creation tools, a Japan-only PC program from the year 2000, where you could make your own custom King's Field game. It's a brand new game, but in every way it looks and feels like a PlayStation 1 game. It's not trying to copy the look or feel of an old game. It's an old game made in 2025. There's a lot of RPG Maker games that come out on Steam every day. Most are really terrible, but there are a few diamonds in the rough with these things. No matter how much they try to dress them up, you can always tell that they're made using RPG Maker, but some developers have managed to do more incredible things with these tools than others. The trend of making new games with old engines on outdated consoles, it's niche, but we're seeing more and more of it, and I'm all for it. Moving on to number 2, next gen going portable. Everybody's always copying Nintendo. First it was a Wii, everyone was scrambling to make a motion control. Now we got the Switch, and every console maker in town seems to be wanting a piece of that. Right now, there's no 100% confirmation that any of this is true, but with the way things are trending, it seems like we're getting Xbox and PlayStation handhelds sometime in the near future, with hardware getting more expensive, and also with people moving to PC games for the chunky games, let's call them. Handhelds make an increasing amount of sense. First off, you can innovate on these things without drastically increasing the cost of the system. I mean, the Switch 2 isn't going to be the most powerful thing ever, but for all intents and purposes, it's going to be powerful enough, and it looks awesome, honestly. On top of that, the Steam Deck is a huge hit. There's a lot of other handheld PCs that are coming out in greater frequency, and I mean, it's a trend that is playing out over a much longer period of time. The Nintendo Switch came out in 2017, and it has proven itself as a workable business model. That is not how the motion control trend went, and what I'm loving is that along with a workable business model, we're seeing more and more flexibility. Everybody loved the Game Boy back in the day, and for a little while, handhelds were basically dead though. So it's nice to see them coming back in maybe a slightly less creative, but at least more functional form. And finally, at number one, and this is number one for a reason, folks, gameplay being the most important part of the game. It's a general trend I've noticed more in the last few years. We're seeing fewer games that are really simplistic or feel like tech demos or really streamlined and aimed at more casual gamers. Games are being aimed at a hardcore audience more. Like, they're much more gameplay focused in the last few years. Think about some of the top-selling stuff of the last few generations, like Skyrim, Fable 2, Final Fantasy 13, BioShock. They're not bad games, but the design is somewhat simple. The more heavy RPG mechanics of previous Elder Scrolls are pretty much gone. I don't want to say it's like not nuanced or anything, but the general trend of the era was that games had a little bit less mechanics, a little simpler, a little easier to understand, less complicated, sand off the fiddly and confusing bits, make them streamlined and safe. In 2025, things are looking a little different. Some of the most popular games the last few years are full of complex systems. They're challenging, like relentlessly challenging sometimes, and they're less focused on showing off tech and more focused on gameplay expression. Compare something like Doom 3 to Doom Eternal, a game that's mostly a technical showcase versus a complex system-heavy shooter. I'm not making a value judgment here. I think both games are good in their own way, but I will say the trend of making games more hardcore focused, a little bit more complex, is a trend I mostly approve of. Like, look at some of the best-selling games of 2024. Games like Dragon's Dogma 2 and Metaphor ReFantazio. Or like even the Shadow the Erd Tree expansion, or smaller games like Balatro or Nine Souls. These are games that have really good presentation, but the gameplay is the real focus, and that's great. That's what these games are about. The sad truth behind this trend is that the advance in technology is slowing down. You can't build games that really wow people with visuals anymore, so there's little reason to sell a game purely on innovative tech, so the focus has to go elsewhere. I don't consider this a sad truth, actually. I'm kind of happy about it, but there are some who would say that. I think this is a great trend, though. It means we're getting better, deeper, more interesting games overall. I do miss the purity of the tech demo game, the Killzone 2s and the Crises of the world. They're mostly a thing of the past. Those games were great in their own way, but I'm happy to ride the wave of mechanically dense and complex games for as long as it's going to last. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. As always, we thank you very much for watching this one. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter and book me on Cameo at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on GameRanx.